Just this week, Top Gun Maverick had its world premiere. Tom Cruise was there, and also Lady Gaga released "Hold My Hand," the title track of the film. A lot of anticipation for this, a lot of pressure for this song here. I wanted to bring in radio personality Dash here to kind of go through this, like the first motions of the song here, and first impressions. So thanks for joining me today.
Of course, happy to be here. I have to see the movie. I'm also a Top Gun fan. I was obviously a Top Gun a couple of times over the course of a couple of Halloweens. So I need to watch the movie to make a full judgment on the song and how it goes with it.
But as far as like initial thoughts when you heard it, what did you think?
It's good. It's slow. It kind of gives me like "I Will Always Love You" vibes from The Bodyguard. So I'm really intrigued to see what's going on in the scenes. Like, if it plays twice in the movie, is it playing during an emotional scene? Is it just the title track? Like, what's going to be happening while the song plays?
And there's a lot of pressure because the title track for the original film, "Take My Breath Away from Berlin," won the Oscar for Best Original Song. Kenny Loggins' "Danger Zone," that song still gets played nonstop at every sporting event, on every marathon race, at the gym. Like, people hear that song and you associate it with Top Gun.
Yeah, totally. I mean, certain songs with certain soundtracks. I mean, the expectations for this movie, no one expects this to be as good as the original Top Gun. They're just expecting it to be as nostalgic, like with references to the old one. So I think the bar is a little bit lower. And, Lady Gaga has "Shallow" in the bag with Bradley Cooper. So like there's a little bit of buffer there in terms of her history. But yeah, it would be also awesome to see her actually win an Oscar with it. That would be really cool again. I mean, but "Shallow" is enough. I feel like she could retire just off of that. I mean, in Chicago comes to mind. I think of like Simple Minds, "Don't You Forget About Me," Breakfast Club, like that type of bars. That what she's setting for herself with this song in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I just got chills because I do want to get a little bit to the 80s soundtrack and John Hughes with, Simple Minds, "Don't You Forget About Me," OMD, "If You Leave" from Pretty in Pink. I mean, those songs get played all the time. And I mean, especially like Emotions, like those were the first couple like 80s movies that I saw. And it takes you back to like childhood time or, rediscovering movies. And those songs just like are just so iconic.
Totally. And I think people used to see movies like 6, 7 times while they were in theaters. So like those songs really stuck. Versus even now, it is cool to see. I mean, you think about like Justin Timberlake,
From
or
Trolls.
yeah, exactly. From Trolls, or Pharrell Williams for "Despicable Me" doing "Just a Cloud Away" or "Happy." Like, it's still happening with animated movies, it seems like, which is kind of funny.
Oh, exactly. Because it makes you think of those animated movies. Aladdin, Moana. I mean, we don't talk about Bruno from Encanto last year. I mean, not only was it popular for people who love Disney movies, but it was on every radio station. You couldn't escape that song. It like topped the charts. I mean,
yeah. I wonder if do you have like a favorite song that was a piece of a movie from your childhood?
Halloween is my favorite holiday. Christmas and Halloween, those are the kind of type, but like Halloween is like my holiday. And
Sure.
Ghostbusters, like I just need to hear that song all the time, and just hearing that just like it puts me in a good mood. I think Ghostbusters might be one of my favorites. Also, the John Hughes "Don't You Forget About Me" and "If You Leave." Those other ones come to mind.
Yeah, I
And
think right behind it, I got the Graduate vinyl, Mrs. Robinson from Simon and Garfunkel. It's another classic where the song almost outlives the movie to some extent.
Oh, exactly. And I do want to talk about some of the vinyls that are behind you. Guardians of the Galaxy, 500 Days of Summer. I mean, sometimes if you're seeing this as a young person, you might not have grown up with the songs of that generation, or you may not know the Smiths, or you may not know some of the classic rock songs that are featured on those soundtracks. But you not only get to discover a movie, but also like a whole like music genre that maybe you weren't familiar with.
Totally. All of a sudden, one of my good friends' wives is named Brandy, and she jokes, she's like, "That was my favorite song growing up, and now everyone's seen Guardians of the Galaxy, and everyone's singing it, and I don't like it." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, Brandy. It's a great song. Check us out singing Looking Glass. It's gonna happen." Stuff like that. So yeah, it's super cool that movies can bring new audiences to old music, especially with Guardians of the Galaxy and some of these Marvel flicks.
And I'm going to go over your left shoulder over here because as a kid, I didn't grow up on Queen's music, but I remember seeing Wayne's World and the Bohemian Rhapsody. So there you go, right there, Wayne's World, and set in Aurora, Illinois. I mean, you can't get it more iconic in our state than this movie.
Yeah. Between Wayne's World and Simple Minds, "Don't You Forget About Me" being in the Breakfast Club. I mean, Chicago's been pretty in luck with music and movies. Totally. Like, you think Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Hound Dog, and just like all of these different songs that seem like they've been placed in movies that hold a special place in Chicago because they're placed into Chicago-based movies.
Oh, exactly. I mean, as far as soundtracks, do you have like an all-time favorite soundtrack, or one that reminds you of your childhood, or one that you go to when you want to be like in a happy place?
Ooh, oh man, my childhood happy place. I was gonna say current happy place. You go with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 or 2 for the first or second movie. Man, for childhood, maybe the Forrest Gump soundtrack has like every single hit from the past 50 years in it. And it brings you back to the first time you ever saw that movie. And most people like, I mean, it came out in I think 94, and it won Best Picture, and part of that goes into how well it was scored. And there's so many good songs in that movie. Like it just makes me feel good.
And I haven't had dinner yet, so like the first thing I think of Forrest Gump is a box of chocolates, and I was like, I'm craving chocolate. I wonder if I have any in the house.
Hey, evokes different things for everybody.
Oh, exactly. Two soundtracks that I want to talk about, I think just because they kind of defined a generation, was the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack with the Bee Gees. I mean, Staying Alive, you hear that song at weddings all the time. It's, you still hear it, 40 plus years later. And Dirty Dancing from the 80s is that not only does it have some of the original songs from Patrick Swayze and I Had the Time of My Life, but also you get to hear songs from like the 50s and 60s that a lot of, people that grew up in the 80s necessarily didn't know, but got to learn to love because of that movie.
Totally. Next time we see each other, we can try the lift. Either you lift me or I lift you.
I'm ready.
Yeah, totally. Or I even think of like, man, The Bodyguard and Whitney, and hearing that song, totally. Like, I mean, she obviously had come out with the song beforehand, or maybe was it with the movie, but it's so iconic. I Will Always Love You, man.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest selling soundtracks of all time. I mean, that was the lead single. She had a bunch of other singles off there as well too. But let's talk a little bit about maybe the year 2000 and before, because this was, like you said, people would go to the movie 6 and 7 times, not only to see the movie, but also, Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On, that became such an iconic part of Titanic. And this one with Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You. And then you rush to the record store to buy the CD of the soundtrack because you couldn't wait to get home to listen to these songs. Let's just talk a little bit about embracing that memory of pairing the movie with like, I have to go to I'm already at the mall seeing the movie. I got to get to the music store to go ahead and get the soundtrack as well.
100%. Or even in my mind, it was like going to Barnes and Noble and going into like the back section where they had the CDs and you could actually listen to the CD versions of these soundtracks. I mean, I'm even thinking about like grabbing the vinyl when I thrifted it for Animal House, which was such a classic film and gets into like some of the 50s classics and has John Belushi and just like really old 50s songs that you don't hear anywhere. I really loved those. I'm trying to think like from the 80s, is there a specific movie you think of right off the bat where you're like, oh man, like that really killed it for that time and I own that vinyl or I wanted it?
I'm trying to think. I wrote out a bunch of things right here. It's Eye of the Tiger, Dolly Parton, 9 to 5, Footloose. I don't know. I love new wave. That is like my genre. Like when I think of the 80s. So I think if we stick Simple Minds, we think OMD. I think that whole kind of genre that really reminds you of that time period in those films. Those are my favorites. What about for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I love the 80s stuff, the 90s stuff, but I even also think about like maybe this is the 90s kid in me. Like the Tarzan soundtrack and like Phil Collins before In the Air Tonight became a meme worthy song. Just all of the songs that he actually scored and created for the Tarzan soundtrack. I'm like, oh my God, like that's part of my childhood. Or the Titanic soundtrack, whether I wanted to listen to it or not, it was everywhere. Back to like the Radio Disney days too, when you hear like the Fantasia stuff. And you couldn't stop listening to Mambo Number 5 because that was every single kid's 13th birthday party. That's where I really dive into. But I wish I had like more 90s movies to reference. I still only have like 2000s animated stuff like Shrek.
But also, I mean, Shrek with Smash Mouth with All Star and I'm a Believer. I mean, those became iconic with that movie, and also Moulin Rouge, the musicals in Chicago right now. And Lady Marmalade was a big hit in 2001. I mean, it was a classic hit remade by Christina Aguilera, Pink, Maya, Lil Kim. And now it's the title track of this musical in Chicago now. And I went to go see it the other week, and everybody was just so excited, and you can see them kind of dancing around. So I mean, that song still has that same impact from that movie 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's cool that like you would almost think that that era died when the internet really blew up and there were so many more options for listening to music. But then you really do have some Marvel movies like that one right there that are bringing it back, which is so cool. They're showing 12-year-old kids, hey, this is a band called Led Zeppelin, you know, and hopefully the Rolling Stones will get thrown in, and new Paul McCartney and old Paul McCartney, which is really cool.
Oh, exactly. And then Eminem Lose Yourself. I mean, that was at the halftime show, last year from 8 Mile, but like that, just because I love to run. So like at every like 5K, half marathon, marathon, that song's always playing or on all the training playlists. So it's like I've never stopped listening to that song.
Yeah.
And you don't always necessarily think about the movie, or you don't necessarily go back and watch the movie all the time, but like that song is
Right.
like a must play.
That's so funny. Yeah, we just started playing it a lot more since the halftime show because that's what happens. You do a halftime show, you're going to get more radio play. It's the way the world works. And it allows me as Dash on the radio to say, you just saw him. He's about to sell 1 billion more records. It's Eminem, Lose Yourself, Today's Variety, 101.9 The Mix, stuff like that. Yeah, totally cool that we get to play more from him, or Monster with him and Rihanna, or a couple other big things from him too.
Oh, exactly. Now let's go back to Top Gun. Are you going to go opening weekend to go see the movie? Are you going to wear one of your Halloween costumes?
I might. My girlfriend's getting mad at me because I try to wear it every year. I just like the green jumpsuit, but yeah, I wonder. I wonder if people will look at me weird at the theater, the Regal in Lincoln Park. They'll be like, "Why is that guy dressed up for Top Gun?" But maybe
Either that, or you're going to ask for a bunch of selfies. It's going to be one of the two.
totally. I'm gonna tell them I'm the guy in the back. I'm like the third pilot, and we'll see if it works out. But no, I think I'll leave it in the closet for now. But I'm definitely gonna go see it within the first week.
Awesome. And then as far as the new Lady Gaga song, are you guys playing it on the radio yet? Do you think it'll get more airplay once the movie actually comes out?
We'll see. We started playing it immediately. Anytime Lady Gaga like drops a new song, we're gonna start playing it, and then we'll see what the actual reaction is. She's one of the few people where it's like we'll play it first and see how it's gauged later. Versus most other artists, we're like we're gonna test this and see how it goes with the audience first.
Oh, exactly. And then she may be able to sing it live. She's coming to Wrigley Field later this summer, so we'll see how the song does and if she includes it in her set list.
She's got so many songs. Yeah, she's got a triage for the public. What's got to make it and what doesn't, because she has so many good songs.